It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Thursday, April 13th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is celebrating. Today is the last game, Russ. Is celebrating the right word?
Yeah, celebrating is the right word. Yes.
All right, we're going to preview tonight's final season matchup against the Chicago Blackhawks. We're going to do a prospect profile on Ethan De Jong from Quinnipiac and get to your mailbag questions all on today's show.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on Twitter at Sportsology. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Flyers. That is where you'll keep up to date with our episodes. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com, and that is how you can ask us mailbag questions like we're going to get to today. Subscribe or follow on YouTube or anywhere you listen to podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, there was one bit of news that we did not get to on yesterday's show, and that was that the Phantoms sent Zayde Wisdom down to the Reading Royals. And I know we had talked on Tuesday's show, on our Phantom show, about you specifically saying you wanted to get him in the lineup for the Phantoms and get him the playoff experience.
Yeah, I mean, end of the day, otherwise, why didn't you just have him go back to the OHL this year? You know, he didn't play a full AHL season, and now you're shipping him out for the playoffs. So it's like, how is this a good year of development for him? Like it just doesn't make sense. He's 20, and it can affect a 20-year-old.
Yeah, I do worry about that it's just gonna, make him, upset, or that he feels like he doesn't have any confidence in his game. Now, on the upside, the Royals are in the playoffs for the ECHL, so he'll
Right.
get more games in down there. That's for sure. And he has played well when they've sent him down. It's just that they haven't, like, I think, made consistent room in the lineup for him. And for him, he's a guy that needs to play day in, day out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He can't get benched. Like, it was very clear when he was in the OHL that the more games he got, the better he played.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That's the kind of player he is. And if you want this guy to be an impact power forward, you've got to help him develop in the early part because, again, he's just 20. So it's like, all right, so now he's sort of getting the Mason Millman treatment. Great.
Yeah, which is ironic because Mason Millman got called up for one game to the Phantoms. But
Wow, one game. Woo.
I know, because they were lacking some D-men at that time due to injury and illness.
Fantastic.
But switching gears over to tonight's Flyers game against the Chicago Blackhawks, last game of the season. I'm honestly a little bitter it's a later game, but that's what happens when you
Yeah,
play
this
on
is
the
stuck
road.
in your craw for sure.
Yeah, but I think that it's just such a fascinating game because it is the last game of the season for both teams. And the previous game that the Blackhawks played against the Pittsburgh Penguins on Tuesday was absolutely incredible. They won 5-2. The Pens just completely collapsed, and they were kind of like in a win and in situation for the playoffs, and they just completely collapsed. And at the same time, Blackhawks fans were really upset because it knocked Chicago down in the lottery odds. So it was like nobody was happy with the
No,
outcome of that
nobody
game.
nobody was happy. I listened to the post game for the Penguins, and Phil Bork was really giving it to him. I mean, but look, Mrazek sometimes has good moments, and he had a lot of good moments in that game. That's what these things, none of these things are ever a lock. Just because it looks like, you have one game left and all you got to do is beat this team to get in. Well, that team sometimes wants to play the game of their lives too. And, you got a problem if that happens. The Penguins do get another game, but they have to see what happens with the Islanders Canadians. So
Yeah. The on the Blackhawks side of things, now they still have more regulation wins than Columbus and Anaheim, even though as of recording they're tied with Anaheim in points. And so, as far as getting the best chance at lottery odds, it's in their best interest to lose this game to the Flyers. For the Flyers, it doesn't matter, but you can't really count on the
I guess it
Flyers.
matters to the assistants that are running the team and not the head coach.
Well, there is that, and if memory serves correctly, based on what John Tortorella said, Daryl Williams should be behind the bench for the Flyers for this game. So, not a lot of Tortorella time running the show in the waning games of the season. And as they're getting their last evaluations of these players, to some degree, I think he's doing that from upstairs or from wherever he's watched the games, but it's different than coaching them and understanding, who's really going to be in it for them for the next season when you're in these kinds of games that don't really count toward anything. Are they still dedicated?
Okay.
And it's hard to say, when you're not behind the bench.
Right. All I can tell you is I've been watching hockey for a very long time, and I've never seen a coach not coach the last 2 games of a season. Like, I've never seen that.
Yeah. I
Coaches
mean,
need to coach. If you wanna do your evaluations, like you said, do it from behind the bench.
Yeah, even if you're letting the assistant coach run the show in terms of
Yeah.
calling the lines and making
Mhm.
decisions, be there.
Be there.
Be there with them. So you're seeing firsthand what's happening with the players. And I think it's very possible to let somebody else run the bench
Sure.
with you still on it. And I think that would have been a better approach for him to take in at least a few of these games.
I mean, you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking for this show, maybe for the next show, I'm gonna let one of my dogs sit in for me so I can kinda see how the whole show runs, and then,
I mean, it might be cuter, but
I just thinking it's a good idea. This way, I could
yeah.
evaluate the show better that way.
Yeah. Well, I certainly know my cat has some thoughts, so maybe we'll sub her in at some point as well. That is very funny. Yeah, just looking at the Chicago team, it's kind of funny and kind of not funny in a lot of ways. Ever since trade deadline, obviously they made a bunch of moves. They're in a very clear rebuild. The only couple of names really left on the team that are strong factors are Jonathan Taves and maybe Seth Jones. And
Yeah,
the
those
and
are the 2
Jonathan,
biggest.
yeah, I wonder what Jonathan Taves's future looks like as a hockey player, just given he has struggled a lot. And
He's had health
so,
struggles post-COVID, so I
yeah,
think he may retire. That's what I'm thinking.
yeah, I think so too. So it would be kind of wild if this was the last game we ever saw Jonathan Taves play in.
Yeah, yeah, I
Against
mean,
the
look,
same
he's
team
one
that
of
he
his
won a cup against.
yeah, I mean, he won a cup against the Flyers, so you wonder if, like,
Yeah.
all of a sudden he'll summon it up and get, like, a 2-goal game going out against the Flyers. Wouldn't shock me.
No, not at all. I was looking at their lineup, and honestly, I maybe know who one of their bottom 6 is
No, but you know what's
entirely.
funny? Like, people we were talking about it on another show, and apparently they play better than you think they're going to. Like, even though they're not, a well-known team. So, sometimes like this is a test, for the Flyers and, go out there, beat them. But again, my issue is this. They beat Columbus, that's fine,
Mhm.
but John Tortorella wasn't coaching. So now if they win this game and John Tortorella isn't coaching, how do I possibly put the spin on it that, well, the team ended really well at the end of the year with John Tortorella behind the bench because he wasn't behind the bench? It's going to be disjointed to figure that out. And the one thing that I'm kind of feeling is like maybe it's like a breath of fresh air for the media because the post game coach is a more verbose and you get more answers. But like, what's the motivation for these guys tied up to long term contracts to play like their hair's on fire for the assistant? Like that's what I wonder. And it's no offense to the assistant, but it's just human nature.
That's a real good point there. I think that, you know, while we're getting good information from these assistant coaches, trying to figure out how to attribute their play at the end of the season is a real question mark, I
Yeah,
think.
I mean, because even at the end of the year, if you start asking the players, well, how were these last couple of games? They're going to be like, well, yeah, it was with the assistant, and yeah, it's kind of like having John, but it's a little different, and it's like it just muddies everything up.
Yeah, it really does. All right,
Just an example, just quick example, like the last 3 games, no points out of Kevin Hayes. 2 of those games were the assistant coaches were there. Shots on goal in the last 3 games, 7 shots in 3 games. Like,
that is not quality there, but
no,
he already kind of thinks he's on the way out, and so he's playing like it.
right. And that's my basic point is if that's happening, how many other players is that happening with?
True. Well, we'll see what happens with this game. We're going to talk about it on tomorrow's show. But up next, we are going to talk about one of the standout players for the national champion Quinnipiac team in the NCAA, and that is Ethan De Jong. Today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories, you got to try Built Bar. My goal has been to eat a little healthier this year, but I'm not someone who can compromise on taste. So if you're like me, Built is just the thing for you. Healthy is actually tasty. And what makes them so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate, and they come in delicious flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. On the healthy side, they're only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar, but have 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box for years. We've been talking about ordering your built bars at built.com. Now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. Head to your nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of built bars. They've got 4 bar boxes of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. And if you're a Sam's Club member, run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors brownie, batter, and churro. You can thank me later. So, Russ, Ethan De Jong, he is a winger for Quinnipiac. He's on the older side right now. He elected to take that extra year of eligibility due to COVID. So he's a grad student actually in his 5th year
Yeah, if you're a
at
grad student in
Quinnipiac.
any sport, you can get that extra year. And that's a good thing. I mean, it's good for the team, it's good for the player because, he gets a little more time to figure it out. You get more of an education. Like it's a positive for everybody.
Yeah, and, I did see a post, about, him that he played 183 games for Quinnipiac, which is a record for a player with one NCAA team because he played pretty much every game, and they had postseason runs,
Yep.
in the tournament. So, um, that is a lot of games to play in college hockey and a lot of quality development time.
It is. And so like this is my contention. And I forget the player that the Flyers signed from, Mankato and gave an AHL deal to. This is the kind of player I would rather give an AHL deal to, and I'll tell you why. So he's just coming off a championship. He is a graduate student, so there's a lot of maturity there. He plays a solid all-around game. He is a great teammate. He's out there in pressure situations, has done really well, and it could really help with the culture, like with the AHL team, because you're bringing in a guy now that has won a championship, and that means something. It does. And I'm not saying this guy could be a long-term Flyer. I don't know, but I've been tracking him for years, and I think there's enough there that would make him a good AHLer and a potential NHLer seeing how, if he continues to develop like he had a really good year this year. These are the kinds of guys I like because they're motivational guys. Besides being good players, being good all-around players, they've been well coached. Players can learn things from this player. Like this is a guy that would walk into the room and be, like there's a lot of respect that would come with this guy, and it's no disrespect to the other guy the Flyers signed, but like I said, it just to me it felt like, why did you do that when there were better players, or at least in my mind, right, better players
Right.
to do that same act with, and this would have been like, just think about it from this perspective, okay? Even if it was strictly PR, and this wouldn't be, because I think he's much better than that. Even from a PR basis, if the Flyers put out that, hey, we've just signed Ethan to, right now it's a AHL deal to be determined for next year, maybe something more. You get the PR, he comes in from Quinnipiac, he's won a championship. How do you think fans feel about that? I think they would feel great about that. But with the other guy, they kind of slid him in under there. There was no message, there was no PR messaging at all. And it's kind of like,
Right.
oh, they signed another guy from Minnesota and they just kind of slid him in there. This one you could actually use as a tool.
So, like, what do you think his ceiling could be? And like, what do you think he got out of that extra time playing in NCAA hockey that could maybe take him to a higher level than you would
Yeah,
have thought before?
he's definitely the kind of guy that could play the fourth line, but if he continues to develop, I think third line would be possible. It's a reach, but it's possible because he has those kinds of tools. Like he's a very heady player, and actually he gave the quote when that set play worked for Quinnipiac that helped them win the championship. And he was like, I can't believe that set play worked, but it did. And so,
Right.
but he's that kind of player. Like he is the kind of player that can be on the ice and pull off a set play. He scored an empty net goal in one of the games, but he scored it because he stole the puck and scored it and
Yeah.
iced it. And so you need guys like this on a team that are very opportunistic, and that's what he is. And he's not going to be a 50-goal scorer or anything like that, but he's going to be very valuable. And I know the Flyers fans have this knee-jerk reaction, oh no, or not another third or fourth liner, but this is a different kind of guy. This is more like a super hockey IQ kind of guy that could help out on the bottom six. And that's different than just getting a bottom six guy that, pushes players around and is out there to cycle the puck and, and hit a few guys. Way different.
Yeah, and you talked about a couple of the plays he made in the Frozen Four, and like those were great plays. And I think that you add a little bit of extra onto what he did because it was in that high pressure
Yes.
situation in a key game, and that he was able to do that set play. And yeah, I mean, I watched both of those games, and that empty net goal was not nothing. I mean, it
No.
was really an important goal to seal it against a really tough Michigan team
Yeah, because
that
everybody
was
was probably thinking Michigan could come back, and he took the
yep.
life out of them when he stole the puck and did it. And to me, that it was a key play. But I've been watching him his whole 5 years. Like he's a guy that's just been getting better every year, and so again, that's why I think this guy, if you'd have brought him in, would just be a great symbolic gesture in the sense that he's a champion, he's a good player. Like they brought in players from Union. I mean, they did. It
Yeah.
wasn't just Gostisbehere. Sometimes you do that. Sometimes you bring in some winners and you see what happens. But if nothing else, it doesn't hurt your locker room.
No, and what you get out of a two-way contract with a guy like him is that you have somebody who's motivated because he does have that two-way contract,
Yeah.
in a way that maybe if he just gets an NA or an AHL deal, it's a different scenario for him, right? And he wants eyes on him, and he's a guy that's going to stand out in those moments. And
Yeah, he could
um,
fill the same kind of role that like a Cooper Marody is doing.
mhm.
Like by next year, he could fill that role, and he's a younger guy. And and that's my feeling. And what I would like to see this team do is yes, it's fine to have some of those veterans, but you only need a certain amount. And this guy's 23, he'll be 24, and those kinds of guys could help fuel you for the next few years and be like almost like coaches up guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. He's the exact kind of guy you want in a bridge situation when you're
Yeah.
trying to rebuild.
Yeah.
It's a hungry guy who's got some skills, who can be a leader on the ice, and he's going to carry you through this period, whatever it is,
Yeah.
in terms of the rebuild. All right. Well, I certainly hope the Flyers will consider him, or a guy like
Any
him.
team. I
And
just want to see him get signed. And he could be a guy like, remember, like JT Brown got invited to camp, and then eventually
Mhm.
got a contract. He may go through that this summer. He may get invited to a bunch of camps, to a bunch of rookie camps. And if nothing else, invite him to the rookie camp, Flyers.
I would hope he would be under consideration for that as well. All right, we are going to finish up today with your mailbag questions coming up next.
Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you with killer deals on last minute tickets and their best price guarantee. You can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. My favorite part of the Game Time app is that it's great for getting notified about last minute tickets and flash deals. Plus, you can get views from your seats. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find the tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Also, tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email. Snag the tickets without the stress of Game Time with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem that code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
All right, one of my favorite parts of our week is getting to your mailbag questions. And Brian wants to know, what will it take to make the playoffs next season? Is that possible?
They're not making the playoffs next season. It's just, if I have to be that guy to tell you, then sorry, I'm that guy to tell you because, there's a lot of hopes. You got to hope Sean Couturier is healthy. You got to hope Cam Atkins is healthy. You got to hope that everybody that they brought up this year plays for the Flyers and they all stick and they all look perfect right out of the gate. And that all carries through the whole year and nobody gets hurt. Otherwise, they have no chance.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, it would be nice if they could take a step forward a little bit and get closer, or at least be more consistent. But again, it's really going to depend on the personnel. And there's just so many question marks there. Like, who's going to be on this team? It could be 2/3 different than it was this past year. So it's kind of hard to say, I think, at this point, in terms of how much better they could potentially get. But that being said, I don't think they're making the playoffs either. Craig wants to know about the Jay O'Brien situation. We already talked about how he's not going to sign with the Flyers, but Craig wants to know if it was on Jay O'Brien's side that he didn't want to sign with the Flyers and wanted to test free agency. Is that the case?
I mean, the way I read the tweet was that the Flyers weren't interested in signing him. And that was my feeling for like this whole season, that they had no real interest in him. So I think if you're just getting into semantics, it really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I don't think they ever were going to sign him anyhow, whether he wanted to or not.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if that one uh, bites the Flyers down the road, but versus whatever pick this turns out to
Right.
be. And we still don't know for sure
No,
if
we
it's
won't
going to
know
be
for a while.
their pick. Yeah. Yeah. All right. This is a really fascinating one, Russ. Jordan, who is a Jets fan, was interested in maybe trading for Travis Sanheim or Ivan Provorov. What do you think a good return from Winnipeg would be for these guys? Or maybe Jordan wants to know what, a cheap return would be, and maybe getting rid of the least number of players as possible.
Yeah. So interesting thing. I think because he's from out west, maybe they would be interested in Sanheim. His long-term deal
Hmm.
kicks in, and he has a no trade, so he would have to want to go there. But I think you
Right.
still could do it over the summer before it kicks in. I think you could do it at the
Yeah.
draft. So who would they be looking for? One guy who really has kind of gotten lost in the shuffle here is Ville Heinola, a really good
Mhm.
defenseman. He's 22 years old. He was with the club very early on in 2020, 21, and they rushed him. There's no question. But he's got talent. He can move the puck. He can score a bit. That's one guy who, if you want to do that, do Heinola and a pick. I would be interested in that because at least you're getting younger, and you're getting a guy that
Right.
has good talent. If you didn't do that, um, I would tell you that just going over everybody, if again, if you wanted to do Brad Lambert, I would do that trade. I mean, Lambert's got 3 points in 14 games for the eight and for the Moose, but he's still only 19. It's going to take a lot of development time if they feel like this playoff this year didn't go the way they wanted and they need to get another veteran. Then give me Brad Lambert and a pick, and I'll do it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if like a Rucker McGroarty would be
Yeah,
reaching
I
too
don't think they would
high.
trade him. I don't think they would trade.
Yeah, I really liked him
Yeah, I
last
do
year.
too.
So
I didn't even mention him because I don't think they would even consider it.
yeah, I don't think so either, but I got to throw it out there, you
Sure.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, he's somebody in the Jet system that I really like. But I do like Brad Lambert as well. He's signed right now to
Yeah.
his ELC, as is Chaz Lucius, another guy who I
Yeah.
really like.
Yeah.
But the
Lucius,
Jets aren't.
they're not trading Lucius.
They're not trading him
He
for
has been
sure.
injury prone. That's the only thing. So maybe you don't want him right now either because you don't know.
hmm Yeah. All right. Well, Jordan, I don't know if a good deal is in there unless it's for picks.
Right.
Um, which is possible. And depending on how Winnipeg does in the playoffs, we'll see. But the last question comes from our friend Brandon, and he wants to know who we could look forward to seeing turn pro next year and playing for the Phantoms as far as the prospects in the system. Um, he mentions Emil Andre and Ethan Sampson. And Sampson is somebody who's signed his ELC, but it's not starting till next year.
Yeah, you can't pick
So,
him up. He needs AHL time.
mhm.
Uh, Andre needs more AHL time, but it's possible if he has a great playoff run here, he could make camp. So he's a possibility. Forster's a possibility. Beyond that, I mean, look, Ali Lixo could play at the NHL level if there was a coach that was willing to let him play for 10 games straight with some real line mates for those 10 games. But he's not going to get that chance, so I don't think he can do it. Gendron and Avon need much more time. Like they're not even. It doesn't matter
Yeah,
how
I
many.
yeah, this next
It's
year
easy to get
for
points in the queue. That's what I want to point out. Don't be seduced by Gendron's points. The queue is a different league. When you get to the AHL, you're not scoring the same way you did in the queue. Just know that.
yeah, I think J.R. Avon is somebody who absolutely needs to start with the Phantoms, but I
Yeah.
think he could make rapid progress in a year. I think,
Yeah, that's possible.
he could have a similar, path as Tyson Forster in terms of the progress he's made
Mhm.
over the course of this year. I think I would hope to see that because Avon really impressed me at the last camp he went to. Like, I
Yep.
thought he was pretty close then, and so he went back and got an extra year. I mean, I think he's really primed, to as long as he has a good summer and comes into camp prepared, I think, he could surprise a lot of people.
Do you have any thoughts about Isaac Ratcliffe having 15 points in 18 games for Milwaukee?
Um, Change of scenery probably did him good and getting in the lineup more regularly.
He becomes an NHL regular where you feel the same way?
Well, that just, extends off of that, right? You get more opportunities, you've had a change of scenery. I mean, I think that it is a combination of,
I still didn't love the
the
way that whole thing went down without getting an asset.
no, no, not at all.
That's been lost in
But
the whole this year scrambly situation of the Flyers.
yeah,
They
I
got a key
think,
player.
yeah, I do think that, his development just didn't go right this year for some reason,
Mhm.
And I'm going to be happy for him no matter where he ends up, as long as he does well, because I think he deserves it.
Yep, agreed.
All right, that will do it for today's show. We will be back again tomorrow. We will really just like recap the season in addition to the game against the Blackhawks. We'll have our end of season hot takes, quick reactions to the season that was. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. If you've got a mailbag question you want us to answer, you can tweet us at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com, or you can comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. Now make your next listen Game to Game NHL. It's every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NHL with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. It's on the Locked On NHL feed, anywhere you get your podcasts. Have a great day.